Thank you very much, Helen and Jisc, for inviting myself and Gillian to talk about this small pilot. My name is Beth Snowden. I'm the part-time EdTech lead here at Craven College, and my colleague Gillian.
Hi, I'm Gillian Thom. I'm the Higher Education Manager at Craven College. We've also put James Simpkin down, although he's not here today, he's at Army Camp, because he delivered most of the sessions.
Yeah, okay. So we're just going to give a kind of brief overview of a pilot that we started last year with a small cohort of HE learners in which we wanted to kind of embed AI literacy in their study skills programme, which had the focus on research. So how we use AI within our research. So before we talk about it, I'll just give you a kind of a brief overview of Craven College. We are a very small college nestled in our main campus is in Skipton, gateway to the Dales. I've got a QR code there if you want to have a look at do a virtual tour. We are a small college with about 2,800 learners. We've got about 430 staff. And 270 of those are teaching staff or teaching support staff. So we wear a lot of hats. We've got HE, we've got FE provision, small cohort of HE learners, apprenticeships, community learning, distance learning. The campus that you see here is our main campus, but we've also got a campus at the Aviation Academy at Leeds Bradford Airport. We have specialist provision at Evolve, and what you can see here is the auction mart where we have our award-winning equine arena, and we've also got actually some provision in Scarborough. So we're a small college, but we're spread quite widely. So yes, the pilot started last year and it's been quite successful. And I know when I've been on these webinars before, there's been quite a bit of interest in this kind of responsible AI researcher pilot. So what I'm going to do is hand you over to Gillian and she can kind of set the context as why we set about this pilot.
So it came from two things really. About 2 years ago in the summer, James Simpkin gave a very good presentation at a staff development day on AI and research and how it helps you find sources, etc., when it was still quite new to us. Also, as an HE manager, I spent a lot of my time looking at academic misconduct, and I was becoming very concerned about the amount of time I was spending looking at AI-generated coursework, and quite often it was just due to a lack of understanding of the students as to what they could use it for and what they couldn't. So I had a conversation with Beth about what could we do, and our idea was that we would integrate some workshops into study skills sessions and professional development sessions, and we'd run a trial at level 4. We also thought that we wanted to incorporate a digital badge to try and give recognition to these students, because one, study skills is the sort of sessions that they don't always recognise as being valuable to attend. So we thought a micro qualification might add value to that.
Yeah, so the digital badging platform that we use is called Navigator. Some of you might be familiar with it. So when we went to the drawing board to discuss what we wanted to achieve, and then kind of through that discussion, we thought it would be a great idea that if students are committed to these 3 workshops and we interweave AI literacy into those 3 workshops and that they present to each other, then we will award them a badge. So when we were discussing and kind of doing a mind map of what we wanted, the first question was, well, what do we want our students to experience? So we had this kind of pedagogical underpinning in which these 4 areas we wanted to ensure that we weren't just talking about research, but we were looking at AI tools for research. We were looking at the pros and cons of AI. We wanted our students to work in groups, so they each chose their own project. And I think what was really key in this was the concept of them actually creating a presentation on what they had learnt in that third workshop. So they were working together, communicating, exploring, looking at all of these AI tools, and then presenting in that third workshop. And Gillian came up with some criteria by which we had this kind of peer-to-peer feedback. So it was great that we were able to talk about AI, but have all of this, this pedagogical approach underpinned across the workshops.
So when we were designing it, I mean, the first thing we actually did was we asked AI to come up with 3 workshops for us. We had a little decided that we used some of it, but we weren't that keen. So the first one, we really looked at initially, what is it? Because a lot of our students have heard of it, but even at the start of this year, they weren't very aware of what it was. They weren't aware of how much it's already integrated into what they do. So we had a look at how have you used AI today, which they may not have realised the ways they've used it. We started to look at prompting and looked at prep for prompting. We spent a little bit of time going over our own. We're validated by Hull University, so we looked at our own guidance and the University of Hull's guidance and started to discuss what would be misuse, but what would be okay, including things like Grammarly and how much can you use it. And then we started to discuss our group presentations. The second workshop, it was much, I suppose, more hands-on, really. I mean, they've practiced prompting, but this one we really looked at, we brought in articles that they could get AI to summarise them. They could have a look at how valuable that summary had been. They evaluated the output. We had a look at a whole list of research tools, didn't we? I don't know if you can remember what they were, Beth.
So we had Liner, Ski Space, Research Rabbit, Peligo, and quite a few others that James had come across that he wanted to try on them. Yeah,
and then we looked at some of the challenges as well, and this is where some of the discussions about sustainability, ethical impact on their careers came in, and then finally they presented their workshop.
Yeah, and you came up with the this criteria, didn't you, by which students would give feedback on the presentations based on content or received presentation style and engagement. So I think that's very helpful. Okay, so what was the feedback and impact of this pilot then?
It varied depending on the group. So we ran this at our aviation academy with our aviation degree students, and we also trialled it with our conservation and countryside students as well, and our acting students. And I think it depended on the area. We got very good feedback from the Aviation Academy, very good feedback from the acting students. They really went into this and about the impact it was having on their creative industry. And a lot of the presentations there were very focused on that. What we did find, this was James, who normally lectures at aviation, was the environmental students refused point blank to use AI. The whole group, and he really enjoyed that, like challenging them about this, and they wouldn't even do the digital badge because they didn't want anything that said they were an AI researcher. They felt so strongly about the possible environmental impacts. But so that was interesting. I was going to say also, we have found that our academic misconduct has dropped this year. Students seem to have a much better understanding of how to use things effectively and ethically. And I think it also had quite an impact on their critical thinking skills, really evaluating what they were using it for.
What about the communication, the project work? Because we did this early on, didn't we?
Yes, so that was quite an added value.
Challenge for them.
It did fall within about the first 4 weeks of term. So actually communicating, talking to each other, working as a group was equally as valuable, I think.
we've got here a photo. So this one was at the Aviation Academy, wasn't it? And so these students, they did take the digital badge. In fact, you can see in the photo that they've got the digital badge is at the back there. And weren't these some of the topics that they chose? A couple of the
topics, yeah.
So we have here social implications of AI, data privacy and security, AI impact on performing arts, and academic integrity and AI in education. I think we gave them initially some ideas, some kind of projects to work with, but then they came up with their own, didn't they?
The ones that were more successful, the ones that they focused on in their own career areas. Yeah.
Okay. And James, he's enjoyed doing this, hasn't he?
He has. So what he said is the fact that students achieved a responsible AI research digital badge for attending the sessions and taking part in a group presentation really helped with buy-in and a sense of achievement. And we did get quite a lot that were keen to claim the badge, didn't we?
Yes, yeah. So in relation to the badge, I'm wondering if the badge was a motivator, or, I mean, you say they were keen to collect the badge. Of course, we have those cohort of students who didn't want to claim the badge, which is interesting. But we looked at the criteria, didn't we, for the digital badge. I think if you scan the QR code, you should be able to view that badge. And Helen, I think you've got the link to the actual badge itself. But I'll just read. So there was set criteria, and we fine-tuned this, didn't we, with James? We worked on it collaboratively. What do we want our students to achieve? And based on those skills that we wanted them to learn, that's how we drafted the badge. So the criteria for one of the criteria is that the learner develop transferable skills in teamwork, communication, research, collaboration, giving and receiving constructive feedback, all skills valued by employers and essential for future academic and professional success. Last year I was involved in a chatting with some of our local employers about the digital skills and the communication skills that they want from learners, and they talked about AI, and they want students who have these to have the AI literacy.
So what I was thinking, going to say about that is I'm not they seem to enjoy the sessions anyway, actually. The two sessions were very well attended, and the ones who attended the first did all come back for the second.
And then presented in the third.
I think the badge encouraged them to do the presentation. Right. I think they probably wouldn't have done the presentation because they don't like doing extra work.
Right.
If they're not going to get something out of it. But that presentation was quite valuable because it got them to really focus on an aspect they were interested in. So it did encourage them to do that. What would I do differently? Well, what would we do next year? We're definitely going to run it again. We are going to bring in not a digital badge, but we're going to bring in further research sessions and actually embed them into the syllabus in modules at level 5 and level 6.
Yeah.
I think the ones that worked best were the ones that we contextualised more. So we set off with just a straight one that we thought we'll just deliver this across all of our areas. Obviously, when we got to acting, even just contextualising the articles they were looking at. So the article they were summarising was an article on the impact of AI on the industry. They seem to enjoy that a lot more. So we're going to contextualise each of the sessions to the area we're delivering to. And we're also talking about developing this at a different level for our FE students, slightly simpler.
Yes, with maybe less of a focus on research for our FE learners, because one of the things that actually was quite challenging for us. So last year we've only just rolled out Copilot for HE learners because of the age restrictions. We've been a bit curtailed here. We were a bit behind the curve here at Craven College in that we didn't have any kind of recommended AI tool for our learners to access. So this is why we've only done it with HE, because we
still had a problem with that though, because we came to start trialing the prompts and I suddenly realised that practically every system was blocked. because of the under 16-year-olds,
Yeah.
because of the younger students.
Yeah.
And they just blocked all students, hadn't specified age. And it's something we've worked on and come over now, but it was quite a quick solution that I had to get this switch back on, or my students couldn't actually use anything.
Yeah, and it was great because
practice.
they could use Copilot within within the Craven College platform. So I think we're in a much better place actually. Whether we're still gonna keep the digital badge for the next cohort.
Yes, for the level 4s, we'll bring it in.
Right.
We'll run it again, exactly.
But not do a digital badge for the
5 and 6. We'll just keep embedding it.
Right. Okay. So I think really that's what we wanted to discuss and share. And if we've got any questions, I can't see if there's. I'll just put the chat on here. Please do reach out to us. So I'm Beth Snowden on LinkedIn. And Gillian Thom with an H, on LinkedIn as well. So thanks very much for listening. If anybody's got any questions, we're happy to answer.